long do these normally go?
Oh, 12 minutes or so. What's that, Karen? We live? All right. Welcome to our press conference today. With me is Dan Skelton, who is the chairman of the Clay County Supervisors. And so we wanted to give you an opportunity to hear from the county as well as the city. A couple items that we want to cover today. My thoughts about the protest that happened last week. Do a little review on that quick. I'll read you the highlights of the proclamation from the governor yesterday as it relates to COVID-19, and then we'll just do a general COVID-19 update from the city and the county perspective. So with that, the first thing I would like to do is thank the city, the citizens, the protesters, the counter-protesters, everybody who came and participated in that event. The people I have talked to who have lived here all their lives can't remember an event like this that has happened. And we carried that event off peacefully. Everybody was able to display their First Amendment rights to gather and peaceably protest, as well as we had citizens display their Second Amendment rights to carry and bear arms. And at the end of the day, there were no arrests. I'd like to thank the incredible amount of law enforcement participation leading up to and during the event. We had joint participation from the state of Iowa with the State Patrol, the Department of Criminal Investigations from the state of Iowa, the Clay County Sheriff's Office, the Plymouth County Sheriff's Office, O'Brien County Sheriff's Office. We had Rock Valley Police Department was here. Our Spencer City Police Department participated. And at the end of the day, my hope and the message that I shared with the protesters as they marched down to the police department was that I hope they find their mission, and everyone finds their personal mission within this movement, whatever that means. I encourage them, if they want change to occur, if they want legal change, to get involved in the government in which they live, get involved in the legislative side of things. If they want social change, get involved with organizations that encourage and offer social participation. If it's neighborhood discussions and family discussions that they want, then they need to be that neighbor and that family member that carries forward those discussions. And so, once again, I think it was a bright, shining moment for our community. People were handing out water, people were welcoming, and it was an environment in which certainly not everybody shared the same opinion, but we all shared the same goal of peace. And it was good to be a part of, and again, thank you to everyone for that. Governor Kim Reynolds yesterday offered a new proclamation regarding COVID-19, and I want to stress that this proclamation is good, effective tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock through Thursday, June 25th at 11:59 p.m. So some of the highlights of that as it relates to restaurants, bars, fitness centers, casinos, other businesses, she lifted the 50% capacity restriction. However, even though the 50% has been lifted, social distancing in those businesses still must apply. So restaurants and other places must take the precautionary measures to allow for 6 feet of separation between groups. The governor also lifted the number of people in a mass gathering. You can gather over 10 people now, but again, you have to allow for hygiene and social distancing to apply. There's some other language in here regarding pools. The governor opened up pools during this time period. In Spencer, we're still having discussions about what that means for us, even though the governor has opened up the ability to operate a pool from a municipal standpoint. We have not yet made the decision to open the pool. There's several variables that go into that decision. One of the major variables is staff. If we have the staff availability, and can we keep the staff healthy? Because if we can't keep the staff healthy, it's hard to run a safe and successful operation. So there will be a decision coming out about our municipal pool. Probably early to mid next week would be a good time frame to set a goal for that. With that, I would just also mention that initially when this first broke out, we had anticipated that sometime early June we would see our peak in numbers. We had prepared for that. We had made decisions regarding that. We have not yet seen our peak. In fact, regionally and specifically in a 60-mile radius of us, we're now really starting to actually see the ramp up. And Dickinson County was just named as one of the hot spots in the country as far as the increased number of positive cases that are coming online. Obviously, BV County, if we run through the numbers really quick, current number of active cases, so these would be total cases that you would see on the website at the state minus the number of recovered people. So these would be active cases. Dickinson County is at 65 active cases. Clay County is at 18 active cases. BV County is at 1,085 active cases. Cherokee at 19. O'Brien County at 39. Osceola at 21. And Palo Alto at 5. And I bring those counties up because of the relevance of our commuter patterns in and out. About 40% of the workforce in Spencer commutes in and out, as well as our social traveling between Lost Island, Okoboji, as well as family units. You know, we typically travel about a 60-mile radius to get our social needs met. And so in that pocket, those are the numbers as it relates to what's happening. I would anticipate you're going to see some businesses in our area, and again, when I say area, I'm talking that 60-mile trade radius. I think you're going to see some of those businesses, depending on how their staff is impacted, they might actually dial back more towards what was happening in April or May as far as being open, being closed, number of people they're going to allow in. So as I've always said, if those business owners make that decision, please respect that and support them. These are not easy decisions for them to make, and the ultimate goal is to keep everybody safe. One of the big questions we get is the demand on hospitals and how many ventilators, how many beds. We're not seeing the numbers that were projected, but in our region, Region 3, which is basically Fort Dodge to Sioux City and the whole northwest Iowa corner, run through those really quick, and this data is available on the state website. 75 are currently hospitalized with COVID, 28 are in the ICU. There's 514 beds still available, so 50% of the beds are open. 109 ICU beds are available. 86 ventilators are available. That's 75% in our region. And there are currently 20 COVID patients on ventilators according to the state in our region. And so those are the numbers. And really now we're moving into managing the social impact and the business operational impact in our area. And with that, I will kick it over to Chairman Skelton.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Robinson, and thank you for inviting me to be at this press conference today. I want to talk a little bit about what's happening with the county facilities, but also I want to pick up where Kevin left off on this point of where we are in this dilemma in which we find ourselves. It's hard to believe that we're 3 months into this, and it has been challenging from the very start. I want to start out by thanking all of the citizens of Clay County for the cooperation over the past 3 months. When this task force first started meeting, we wanted to emphasize behaviors that would flatten the curve. You're all familiar with that term that has been here since the beginning. And by limiting activities, limiting travel time, face masks, physical distancing, washing hands, we have kept the numbers down to this point in Clay County, and that's because the public has responded to our request to take those measures, and we did flatten the curve, and so that the numbers that Kevin just talked about in terms of availability of beds in local hospitals is there because the public responded to that challenge up front. And again, I want to thank everybody for that participation. I would also like to say, keep it up. I know it's tough. It's summertime. We're tired of being cooped up for 3 months. We want to get out and do things. We want to be more active. We want to go to retail spaces and do things, and you can do that. But we ask that you do it in a responsible manner in which you have been doing it. Continue to wear face masks when you're in public. Continue to physically distance. Limit your activities outside. And for personal hygiene, continue to thoroughly wash and frequently wash your hands and disinfect surfaces, all of the things that you know by rote by now that we've been doing for 3 months. I just wanted to mention, Kevin mentioned that the activity of COVID-19 in the area is picking up. 2 weeks ago, Memorial Day weekend, we started to lift some of the activities. In Clay County, we had 10 positives. Today, 2 weeks later, we have 40. We've quadrupled the number in 2 weeks. And what's going to happen in another 2 weeks or 4 weeks, I don't know. None of us know. But we feel that we can slow that peak, if you will, by maintaining those activities. I said I was going to talk a little bit about county facilities. On Monday of this week, we opened county facilities to the public. If you have business at the administration building, first of all, we would continue to encourage you, if you can do it, by email, by phone, or by some other postal service, to continue to do it that way. It's the safest way. But if you do come to the administration building, you will find someone greeting you at the door. We are limiting the activity to one person per office, with the exception of the treasurer's office. She can accommodate 2 people at one time. And so if you come into the building and there's nobody at the window at which you want to go, you will be directed forward. The person who greets you will offer you a face mask. They are encouraged. They're not required, but they are encouraged. And while in the building, again, we ask that you respect the physical distance rule. The exception to all of this is driver's licenses. Those are by appointment only at this time. So if you need to do something with your driver's license, call the treasurer's office. They'll be very accommodating, set up an appointment for you, and then you'll come and get the business taken care of. That is all I have to offer at this point.
All right. Thank you, Dan. Scrolling through some of the comments here, Denise Lewis has a question about the Clay County Fair. Do you want to take that one, Dan?
Yes, I will.
All right.
I'll be happy to do that. As everyone knows, the Minnesota State Fair has canceled. Yesterday, the Iowa State Fair announced that it was postponing until 2021 its fair for this year. Clay County Fair is still planning to have a fair at September. Fair manager Jeremy Parsons joined our group yesterday afternoon and explained that a final decision will be made sometime in mid-July. Ahead of that, he is meeting on a regular basis with his fair board, as well as his fair superintendents and volunteers, gauging their concerns and willing to participate in a September fair. But the fair has seen very few vendors cancel to this point. No acts have canceled to this point. And so the emphasis at this point is going ahead and preparing for the fair and trying to work through some of the logistics of what it will look like with a physically distant grandstand concert, for example, tent shows versus outside activities, that sort of thing. I know there is a livestock show on the fairgrounds this weekend, and it may be a preview of some of what we see at this year's Clay County Fair. The exhibitors in the show ring will be required to wear face masks at all times. The bleachers have been removed from the arena to discourage congregating as individuals in there. So working through some of those logistics ahead of the fair is a lot of what's happening right now. Jeremy told our group that when it comes to the Iowa State Fair, the Minnesota State Fair, and the Clay County Fair, we're not comparing apples to apples. Iowa State Fair is 1 million attendees. Minnesota State Fair is 2 million attendees, both in urban areas. We're a far smaller crowd and in a rural area. You did mention that in the Minnesota State Fair, half of those 2 million people will travel to the fair by bus, common conveyance. And that is not considered exactly hygiene at this point in the crisis. So that's one of the factors that went into their decision. That's not something that affects the Clay County Fair.
Very good. Thank you, Dan. Scrolling through for some other questions. I don't see any at this time. I'd like you to know that we do still meet daily, as Dan mentioned, our COVID task force, and I've been deliberating a lot on what are the decisions that we and our role that we as the government need to play as it relates to COVID-19 in our area. And certainly the first and foremost is information. We need to pass along the relevant information to you as we have it. Second is we need to be able to make informed decisions and try to help keep the public safe. We talked a little bit at the beginning of this how the mortality rates that were projected are not what we're seeing now, and the hospital capacities that were projected, that demand is not what we're seeing now, but we're still seeing the impact of COVID-19. So I read to you some statistics earlier, and I didn't read to you the death statistics in our region. In BV County, according to the state website, there's been 4 deaths, and in O'Brien County, there's been 1 death. And so as I've been deliberating on, the messages that we need to make sure the public is aware of, as well as the discussions that need to continue to occur, my thoughts have been, as humans, we have a deep desire to interact. And we especially have that desire to interact when the weather gets warmer. As we live in the upper Midwest, we're tired of being cooped up in the winter. And so that's what we're seeing out there right now. We're seeing people want to gather, people want to get together, and that's a big component in the increase in numbers that we're seeing, especially it's anticipated in Dickinson County with their rise, and Dan talked about our rise as well. In BV County, that can be attributed a little heavier to a couple different workplace environments that have contributed to that, but the bigger concern is the community spread in Clay County and Dickinson County. So what does that really mean if we're not seeing people being hospitalized at the rate that we thought? Well, what it means is we don't really know what the impact is when somebody gets it. I know people who I personally know have tested positive who are asymptomatic and didn't know they were carriers. There are people that I know that have been knocked back a little bit, like a bad flu for a couple days. There are people that I don't know in our area that have died. And so as it relates to social responsibility, the main message I think that the Clay County COVID Task Force would like to relay today is that it's still here, it's still in our community. Please be prudent in social distancing. Please be prudent, as Dan mentioned, wearing your face mask when you're not able to social distance. And we don't know how it's going to impact people when they get this disease. So with that, I would just say, as we increase our activity, we need to also be good about the behaviors that we display during our activity. These activities are familiar. We do them every year, and we have a tendency to jump right in and do them like we used to do them. And as we gather with picnics and backyard barbecues and things of that nature, just remember that COVID-19 is still here. It is still impacting people, and probably, from my perspective, the biggest impact that this could have over the next 60 to 90 days is on our workforce. Businesses, if we have many small businesses of 3 to 10 employees, and if 3, 4, 5 of those employees either start going out because they have COVID or because they've been exposed to people who have had COVID and they have to go isolate for 14 days, we're going to see an economic impact that's different than being not open for business. It's going to be a scramble in order to try to stay open and service the needs of the business and the workers as well as the patrons. And so with that, I'll scroll one more time through to see if there's any questions. Dan, do you have any final thoughts?
Yes, I do. I would like to encourage people to pay attention to their neighbors. We are seeing region-wide an increase in suicides, some of which may or may not be related to COVID or being cooped up for 3 months. But whether it's mental stress or suicide, be aware of your neighbors, what their needs are. Give a shout out, give a call to somebody you think might be under stress, and see if just a few friendly words can help. I would say the same thing would apply to if you have elderly neighbors who may be afraid to go to the grocery store. Offer to go pick up some stuff for them. Help out in your community. It'll not only help those individuals out, but it'll make you feel better too.
Well said, Dan. As always, stay safe. God bless. We're going to get through this, and we'll continue to keep you informed. Quick recap, we'll make a pool decision sometime in the next week, And as a reminder, the governor's proclamation from yesterday runs through June 25th. We would anticipate she's usually 4 or 5 days ahead of those end dates to make some more announcements. And so, again, stay safe. God bless. Take care.